This week on the reVIEW, an online storm over a perceived lack of interest in Syria coverage, the first female Malaysian cage fighter, plus the news you've been clicking and sharing. Hello and welcome to the reVIEW, the show airing your views about the channel's coverage. This week we're wrapping up Syria Month on the network, and we've seen some really heartbreaking coverage of a humanitarian crisis exploding. But are people losing interest in the Syrian war? That's the question raised by one editorial on the Al Jazeera website titled, "You Probably Won't Read This Piece About Syria." Why did this headline arise such controversy? We talked to the man who wrote it. But first, let's take a look back at what news you've been clicking and sharing this week.
Saudi aircrafts are shedding in the north.
Shattered debris of German Wings Flight 9525.
Cheating in India on a whole different level. These parents climb up 4 floors of an exam center building in Bihar state, folding answer sheets into paper planes and throwing them to their children.
And it's one thing for a heavily pregnant woman to walk long distances in warmer weather like this, but come winter time, and this area is thick with snow.
With every hour, war appears to be getting closer. The Houthis have reportedly taken the airport in Taiz. They say they're fighting for the rights of all Yemenis.
Without Lee Kuan Yew, Singapore as the world knows it may have never existed. Lee repaid his people with an economic miracle, sealing a legacy as one of the 20th century's most important leaders.
The shattered debris of German Wings Flight 9525 is strewn across the hillside.
Bad weather is threatening to further hamper what is already a difficult search operation.
The powerful mudslide destroyed nearly everything in its path. Officials say at least 7 people died. The mudslide has completely blocked Lima's main food supply road.
1 hour ago, the entire capital shook.
The Saudi aircrafts are shedding in the north. Iranian-supported militia is advancing in the south.
Anything that belonged to the Houthi forces was also attacked.
There are plenty of items to highlight over the last month in terms of Syria coverage, and plenty of criticism that came with it. But the one article that seemed to spark especially heated debate online wasn't about the conflict itself, but about whether anyone cares. Online editor Barry Malone wrote a blog that opened with a disturbing image that had featured before on our website, except this time his headline was, "You probably won't read this piece about Syria." In it, he says that based on the web team's analysis, that traffic to our sites dealing with Syria was low, much lower than expected. He wrote that stinging accusation of apathy seemed justified. Well, you responded online in dramatic fashion. Michelle Tuxford said on Facebook, "Don't you dare tell me that I don't care." And Jacqueline Edwards said, "I am a concerned and compassionate citizen of the world with such a minuscule voice in the world, but I would love to have these sentiments heard more powerfully." Also, Tina P. Moyen said, "Some of us do care, even though we are across the world." And Alice Sturt on Google+, "I believe this inaction is not the same as indifference. It is the amputated feeling of utter helplessness." So we asked Barry, is what he's seeing indifference or helplessness?
I think it's a bit of both. You know, I was really interested in the responses from people who said, look, it's not that I don't care, it's what do I do? I'm powerless, I'm helpless, of course I care. And you know, we read a lot of those comments, and I think they're a really valuable conversation arose out of those comments. What we knew is that people weren't reading our Syria stories. So the headline that said, "You probably won't read this piece about Syria," for us, it was accurate, because the data showed us that people weren't reading those pieces about Syria.
Why did you choose to write this piece and in effect go public with our low numbers that our Syria coverage got?
Yeah, it was interesting. I mean, it was interesting to see some journalists point out that I suppose that's quite a controversial thing for a news organization to do, you know, to publicly say to its readers and to its audience, you know what, you didn't look at this, we didn't do so well in this, we put all of this work into these opinion pieces, these features, these TV packages, these great documentaries, and you know what, very few people looked at them. But we thought it was important to have that kind of transparency, and important to explore the question of why this is, and to give our audience a chance to answer it. Also, this is not about shaming our audience. This is not about saying to our audience, you didn't read these pieces. We have to reflect on our own performance as journalists. One of the things that I said in the piece was that the grotesque steals all the limelight. So the stories about ISIL do well. So stories about Syrian refugees, not so well. Stories about the day-to-day grind of war, not so good. Stories about ISIL, they still do well. But who is it that's serving up those stories to the audience? It's me, it's my colleagues, it's Al Jazeera and it's other media organisations. So it wasn't an accusatory piece. It was kind of a call to arms for all of us, audience, journalists, to question humanity without sounding too corny, to question ourselves in how we're responding to this really important conflict of our times.
How do you respond to the people who were offended by your piece?
I think people were offended because they've seen it as an accusation that they didn't care, and obviously the people who found that offensive are people who who very much from their heart did care. And I would say to them, it's great that you care. And I would say to them, we've heard your responses on the fact that you're powerless. And I think that what we probably will do in the future is we'll look at doing some pieces that try to help inform people who do care about what it is that they can do to help.
And you can watch more behind the scenes coverage on our Facebook page at facebook.com/AJE.reVIEW or on our webpage at aljazeera.com/reVIEW. A film coming up tonight that you really shouldn't miss is a 101 East production following Malaysia's first female cage fighter. We spoke with the filmmaker about why the story was important for Asian women and had her answer some viewers' questions. Here's a sneak peek of the film, plus filmmaker Ayla Callan's responses to your questions. Meet Anne Osman, the woman breaking stereotypes and succeeding in a violent, male-dominated sport. Filmmaker Ayla Callan follows the rise of Malaysia's first professional female cage fighter, dismissing religious taboos along the way.
Before a fight, I do a lot of mental preparation, weeks before.
The thing about Anne is that she really captures the imagination of the modern woman. She is a Southeast Asian woman. You don't see many Southeast Asian women portrayed in as really strong role models, as really powerful figures. She isn't the best fighter in the world. She isn't even the best fighter in Asia. But she's really dealing with some very strong issues that people are concerned with around the world, not just here in Asia. Women everywhere are thinking about how they're portrayed.
28-year-old Anne Osman is the big new star in Asian MMA.
It's fight night. Anne is about to do battle in front of 10,000 fans. The atmosphere feels like a rock concert. I'm here to find out what drives a woman to get into that cage.
She's a media darling, the hope of a nation, and an icon for women. Can she claim victory and live up to the hype?
I think Anne's biggest fear is actually being a failure. And I think that that's something that a lot of us can relate to. I think she definitely fears not being good enough and not living up to the expectation and hype. I think Anne's ultimate goal is to win. She wants to be the best fighter that she can be. She definitely has plans to be a role model for women, to be an educator for women, particularly in self-defense. She definitely also does want women to slip on MMA gloves.
Which is easier than playing into modern female athletic stereotypes.
I'm rather going to cage right now.
Leading up to the premiere of the film, Ayla wrote this online piece for Al Jazeera about Anne. The response was overwhelming. Anthony R. Lewis commented on Facebook saying, stories like this need to be reported by the mainstream media. It's highly commendable that this individual has chosen to speak out against some form of injustice that affects our world already.
Anthony, I love you. You totally get it. This is exactly why I did this story. She is somebody who really is able to have a platform to make a difference. And in many ways, Anne hasn't chosen this battle. This battle has chosen her. Now she's in the spotlight, and for better or worse, she has to deal with the consequences of being kind of the pin-up girl for defying stereotypes in Asia.
Thanks for joining us this week. We look forward to reading more of your comments and questions over the next few days. You can also send us video comments about our coverage at aljvideo.weebly.com. We'll see you next week.